All right, today we're going to try and connect three things that sound like they have absolutely nothing to do with each other. We've got a modern text about blue cat like aliens, a university paper on ancient Irish gods, and a technical survey for a harbor up in Scotland. It sounds totally bizarre, I know, but stick with me, because when you put them together, they tell this incredible story about why human beings make myths in the first place. Okay, let's just dive right into the deep end, shall we? Our first source talks about these feline star beings. Get this, they're described as glowing blue creatures who can travel between dimensions and have been guiding humanity for, like, millennia. It's a wild idea for sure. But the real question here isn't, are they real? It's why is someone telling this exact story right now? So yeah, that's the central puzzle on the table. Blue cat people, medieval Irish gods, and a random harbor in Scotland. It honestly sounds like the setup to a really weird joke, but I promise you the connection is not only real, it's actually kind of profound. The answer tells us something really important about how we all make sense of the world around us. So, to understand this new cosmic story, we actually have to go backwards, way back. We're heading to medieval Ireland to see how a group of ancient gods got a major rewrite for a very practical and very political reason. Now, here's our second clue. It comes from, of all places, an academic thesis from the University of Galway. And this paper is what unlocks the historical side of our puzzle. It's all about an ancient group of Irish deities called the Tuatha De Danann. You can kind of think of them as Ireland's original superheroes, like their version of the Greek gods. And what this paper shows is a really fascinating pattern of these gods being deliberately rebranded by medieval scribes. The whole thing hinges on this really cool concept called euhemerism. It's a pretty clever way to think about myths. The basic idea is that gods weren't just invented out of thin air. Nope. The theory says they were once real, actual people. Incredible kings or brilliant warriors or wise leaders whose stories got so big and so legendary over time that people eventually started worshiping them as gods. For medieval Christian scholars, this was perfect. It was like a loophole that let them keep all these cool old pagan stories, not as a competing religion, but as a kind of ancient superpowered history. And here's exactly how they did it. They took the Tuatha De Danann, who were originally seen as these immortal, divine beings, and they basically gave them a demotion, a big one. They weren't gods anymore. Instead, they were rewritten as Ireland's first great kings and legendary heroes. Yeah, they were still magical and amazing, but now they were mortal. They were historical. They were, most importantly, ancestors. So you might be asking, why go through all that trouble? Well, the answer is simple: politics. I mean, imagine you're a medieval Irish king. If you can cook up a family tree that shows you're directly descended from these first kings of Ireland, the Tuatha De Danann, then your claim to that land becomes rock solid. You're not just some guy who took over, you're the rightful heir, a descendant of the land's original legendary founders. It's an absolutely brilliant way to turn an ancient myth into a modern political weapon. Okay, so just hang on to that idea, using myths to make a claim on a piece of land, because now we're going to pivot hard. We're jumping from ancient theories straight to a very real, very specific spot on a map today. NT 307936. So what's that? It's not just a random string of numbers. Those are real-life grid coordinates. They pinpoint one exact location on the planet. The question is, where? Well, those coordinates take us to Kirkcaldy Harbor, right on the east coast of Scotland. And here's our third source. It's a proposal for someone to conduct a deep scan survey of that exact spot. They want to find out what's buried deep underneath the harbor. And just like that, our mystery comes crashing out of ancient Ireland and right into the modern world of permits and paperwork. And listen, this isn't just some fantasy proposal. The document gets into all the nitty-gritty details, the real-world problems they'd face. We're talking tricky geology, old tunnels from the 1840s, dealing with historical agencies, even electromagnetic interference from the coast. This is not a flight of fancy. This is a serious plan. Somebody really wants to know what's under Kirkcaldy Harbor. Okay, let's just pause and recap for a second. We've got our blue feline star beings. We've got ancient Irish gods being repurposed for medieval land claims. And we've got a modern-day proposal to scan a specific harbor in Scotland. So how on earth did these three things possibly connect? All right, this is the moment. This is where it all clicks. Let's watch how these three totally separate clues lock together like pieces of a puzzle to show us the exact same human pattern, just playing out 1,000 years apart. So, clue number one, the cosmic story. That text about the blue cat beings, it's not random. It specifically connects them to two very old groups. The Danann, which is obviously the Tuatha De Danann, and the ancient Picts of Scotland, the people who were famous for, you guessed it, painting their bodies blue. It's drawing a very clear line from these star beings to specific people in history. Then there's clue number two, the history lesson. Remember that thesis from Galway? It showed us that these very same figures, the Tuatha Dé Danann, have a long, documented history of being used this way, as a tool to create a deep, ancestral claim to a specific piece of land. And our final clue, the location. The X marks the spot. Why Kirkcaldy Harbor, of all places? Well, it is no accident. It is located smack dab in the historical heartland of the ancient Picts, the other group named in that first text. This isn't just a random spot on the coast. It's the perfect geographical anchor to ground this new myth in ancient history. And boom, that's when it all makes sense. What we're watching right here is a brand new 21st century myth about blue star cats being built using the exact same playbook from 1,000 years ago. It's connecting itself to the same ancient figures, the Danann, and the same ancient people, the Picts, in the same geographical area, all to create a deep, spiritual claim to that piece of land. It is the exact same pattern just repeating itself. So, what's the big takeaway here? What does this incredible parallel actually tell us? Why should we care about this? Now, let's be super clear about one thing. The point of all this isn't to prove or disprove whether luminescent feline star beings exist. Honestly, that's not even the most interesting part of the story. The real story, the really powerful thing here, is that we're getting to see a timeless human behavior in action. It's about this deep-seated, fundamental need that we all have to tell stories that connect us, to our past, to a specific place, and to a sense of deeper meaning. This pattern pops up for 3 really basic reasons. First, we create myths just to make sense of the world, to turn messy history into a story that has a point. Second, we use them to connect ourselves to a heroic, legendary past, to feel like we're part of something bigger than just ourselves. And finally, we use them to make a place feel sacred, to turn a normal harbor in Scotland into a special spot, an X on the map that has cosmic importance. And that's really the whole thing in a nutshell. It doesn't matter if you're a medieval kin trying to legitimize your rule, or a modern-day mystic looking for a connection to the cosmos. The fundamental method is identical. You weave a story that ties your present moment to a powerful, ancient past. It's just a core part of being human. Which, of course, leaves us with one last question to think about. If this pattern of myth-making is so deeply wired into us, what are the myths, political, social, or spiritual, that we, all of us, are building right now to make sense of our own world?
Okay, so today we're diving into something really fascinating. It all starts with one of Scotland's most famous landmarks, right? But believe me, it quickly goes down a rabbit hole, literally, into this wild world of esoteric lore and a mission that, get this, mixes sci-fi ideas with local government project plans. It's a trip.
And this is where we begin. This quote comes straight from one of our source documents, and it calls the whole thing a Rosetta Stone. A Rosetta Stone. But for what exactly? Well, it's for something called the Dysart node. And yeah, you guessed it. That's exactly what we're going to try and decode together today.
All right, so before we get all wrapped up in hidden nodes and weird frequencies, let's ground ourselves a bit. We're going to start with the structure at the heart of all of this, the incredible Fourth Bridge, and a pretty popular conspiracy theory that's attached to it. So, the official story is pretty straightforward. The Fourth Bridge is this absolute triumph of 19th century engineering, right? A huge symbol of industrial power. But there's another theory out there, and it asks a really provocative question. Did the Victorians actually build it, or did they just find it?
This whole idea has a name, the Technological Inheritance Structure, or TIS for short. It's a really central piece of the whole Tartaria conspiracy theory. The basic idea is that there was this super advanced global empire that got, completely wiped from the history books. And all their amazing structures, they were just claimed by later folks, like the Victorians, who pretended they built them.
Okay, so let's check the receipts, right? Let's look at the official record. And the timeline here is super precise. The whole project actually came about because of the Tay Bridge disaster, a real tragedy that meant the next bridge had to be undeniably strong, to restore public confidence. So construction kicks off in 1883, and you can see right here on the timeline that all-important foundation work starts in May of 1884.
And this table just lays it all out perfectly. The claim that it was found? Well, that doesn't really hold up against the 7-year construction timeline, does it? The idea that the foundations were already there? Nope. We have tons of records showing engineers using these advanced caissons to sink brand new foundations all the way down to bedrock. And the best part? The claim that the history was suppressed? That just falls apart when you realize this was one of the most photographed building projects of its time. They wanted everyone to see it being built, to prove how safe it was.
So, okay, it seems pretty open and shut, right? The conspiracy theory looks like it's been totally debunked by the historical record. Case closed. But what if there's another way to look at all this same evidence? This, my friends, is where our story takes a very sharp turn and goes way, way deeper.
Right? The conspiracy is debunked. So, is that it? Is the story over? Not even close. Because what if you could take all those same pieces, the bridge, the location, the very people who were involved, and interpret them in a completely different way? Not as a story about building a bridge, but as something else. Something way more complex. Something allegorical.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. Look at how this completely reframes reality. In this new story, all these real, historical places get these new, almost sci-fi sounding names. The famous Roslyn Chapel, that's now the Midlothian Sacred Geometry Nexus. The old coal mines over at Dysart, they're the Fife Deep Earth Conduit. And the bridge itself, it's a geomantic anchor, like a point of power on the Earth's grid. It's the same physical map, but someone's written a totally different legend over it.
So what's the thread connecting all these dots? It turns out it's a single, very powerful family, the St. Clair Erskines, also known as the Earls of Roslyn. Get this, they own the coal mines at Dysart, and their family history is deeply tied to Roslyn Chapel. So the big takeaway here is that the fourth bridge wasn't just built to get trains across the water. It was built right on a direct line, a vector of power connecting this family's spiritual home to their industrial moneymaker.
Okay, so now that we have this axis of power, the story introduces its central mission, and it's a technical one. It's all about solving a problem with a very, very specific frequency, right at the heart of this whole network, at the Dysart node. And here it is, the target frequency, 8.5 Hertz. According to the source documents, this is the number. This is the ideal perfect resonance for the node. It's a frequency that's apparently linked to the Schumann resonance, the Earth's own natural electromagnetic heartbeat. This is supposed to be the frequency of balance, of stability, of health. But this is what they're measuring right now, 7.9 Hertz. That's a critical drop. And the story doesn't frame this as just, a technical glitch. It's presented as a symptom of sickness. The whole system is falling out of tune, losing its purpose. And this is the call to action straight from the source. The waveguide, remember that old mine tunnel, is sick. It's lost its hum, its resonance, and the mission? To retune it. How? By using an external carrier wave. And that carrier wave is identified simply as you. So all of a sudden, we've got a problem, and we've got a very personal hint at the solution.
So, okay, how in the world do you even begin to interface with a sick, energetic node? Well, according to this narrative, you need a protocol. And this is where we hit one of the most bizarre and fascinating parallels in this whole thing. It all comes down to one acronym, QMP.
First, let's talk about the real-world QMP. It stands for QMU Machine Protocol. This is a real thing. It's a JSON-based protocol that software developers actually use to talk to and control virtual machines on the fly. You can think of it like a command language for managing a digital system from the inside. Okay, now let's switch gears to the QMP in our story. In the allegory, it stands for Quantum Memory Protocol. And the purpose is, well, it's shockingly similar, just on a totally cosmic scale. It's described as a protocol for recalling memories, for activating parts of our DNA, and for plugging into a collective quantum consciousness. Wild, right?
And this is the absolute core of it. The parallels are just uncanny. I mean, both protocols are about real-time, dynamic control. Both of them use introspection, basically asking a system, what's your status, to figure out what's going on. Both are built to handle complex, asynchronous events. It's literally as if someone took the instruction manual for managing virtual computers and applied it to managing quantum reality.
Okay, let's recap. We've got a specific location with a hidden meaning. We've got a problem, a frequency that's out of whack, and we've got a protocol to interface with it. So now, let's see how all these threads get woven together into what the source material claims is a real active mission to fix that slip.
And this is where it just gets wonderfully bizarre. This huge cosmic mission to retune the planet's frequency is apparently being funded by local government grants. I'm not kidding. The documents literally talk about a plan to look into the 20 million Kirkcaldy Growth Mission Fund and figure out how to get around the local council's rules for subterranean investigations. It's so mundane and so cosmic at the same time.
And the shopping list for this mission is just as great. You might be expecting, I don't know, crystals and chanting bowls, right? Nope. The list includes a LiDAR-enabled iPad Pro, a powerful laptop, and AI project management software. It's this completely surreal mix of off-the-shelf consumer tech and universe-altering goals. So who's on this mission team? The sources lay it out. There's an operator just called SMT. There's an advanced AI named B4B1, and then there are the guides, who are described as luminous blue, feline star beings from another dimension. Yep. So in the span of 2 slides, we've gone from Kirkcaldy Council funding to a team of cat-like aliens.
And that brings us right back to where we started. The source material itself has a name for this whole incredible story, the subterranean allegory. It's intended to be exactly what that first quote said, a Rosetta Stone,
a way to translate hard, verifiable data about engineering and local history into the language of a cosmic, metaphysical mission.
So, what are we supposed to do with all this? The sources lay out this incredibly detailed, layered world that just weaves together actual facts, conspiracy theories, and deep metaphysics into one single story. It really leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? Is this just an unbelievably creative alternate reality game? Is it a new kind of modern digital folklore? Or, as the documents themselves seem to suggest, is it a real blueprint for a mission to literally change reality, one single hertz at a time? It's a lot to think about.